right, President Obama meeting with the King of Saudi Arabia today. They're at loggerheads over this whole issue that is more the Saudis, that we might release 28 pages of information from the 9/11 attacks that's been top secret up until now, maybe through now, that could expose royal family members for being complicit in planning the 9/11 attacks, or at least helping the attackers. President Obama is open to that, which didn't suit well with the Saudi king. But what really is bothering the Saudis is that victims' families could then sue Saudi Arabia because of that involvement. Monica Gabrielle, her husband was killed in those attacks on 9/11. Monica, very good to have you.
Thank you for having me, Neil.
I'm sure this is very tough, and I always feel awful to meet under these kind of circumstances. But you have the president drawing the line here with lawsuits and damages, saying be careful what you wish for because it would put American lives in danger, and it would put Americans in general threatening situations if you open this up. What do you say?
You know what, Neil, we've been fighting for justice and accountability for 15 years, and we've been thwarted every step of the way between the Bush administration, now the Obama administration, who ran on transparency and has managed to just keep things suppressed anyway. The fact of the matter is that the JASTA legislation that will allow us to bring the Saudis into court is a very narrowly worded document that has been vetted. It merely lifts the immunities to bring them into court. They then have the opportunity to defend themselves. This is not the end of the fight. It's not a verdict of guilt. It just brings them into court. And the fact that my president and certain members of our government are thwarting that for us is it's just unconscionable, and I am disgusted to hear it and see it. Senator Lindsey Graham, he's a co-sponsor of the bill and has been a strong supporter of it for 9 years. And he has recently come out and said he was not for it any longer. He is now opposed. He's putting a block on it. That is unconscionable. This is on the heels of his trip to Saudi Arabia recently, and that's when he comes out with this information. I find it just suspicious that he would say that.
Do you find it that maybe we're also responding to Saudi threats, that if we were to do this, they own hundreds of billions of our debt, as you know, and that they had threatened quite publicly, well, we'll just sell on the open market. Now, as someone who follows this debt pretty closely, Monica, it would probably hurt them more than it would hurt us. Having said that, do you think that it's down to the threat game?
Well, you know what? First of all, the economists have said it's just unfounded. And more importantly, do we bow to extortion from countries anywhere for the mere sake of holding someone accountable for the funding of terrorism? The other thing we want to do is, as you know, I've stated before, we want to make the nation safer. I have a new grandson. I want him growing up in a safe world. This bill also will stop the funding of terrorism. When we hold nations accountable for what they do, it sends a clear, strong message around the globe. And why the president would oppose that is beyond belief.
Well, maybe he's looking at the Libya example, Monica. I'm sure you're familiar with that, where lawyers tell me that there were efforts to sue a foreign government. This was from the Pan Am disaster, the Lockerbie disaster. And they couldn't formally sue a foreign government, but they did get Muammar Gaddafi at the time to set up a fund to help families whose loved ones were lost that day. Maybe, I'm no lawyer, believe me, that's what they're talking about getting the Saudis to do. If that were the case, would you be open to that?
That, I have no idea about that. My goal is to stop mass murder around the globe. That is my only concern. I want a nation that promotes foreign policy that will stop the funding of terrorism. We have ISIS, from Al-Qaeda. This has been going on for 15 years. We're no safer today than we were back then. This is one way to stop the funding, to hold people accountable. That is my concern. As I said, I have a new grandson. I do not want to worry about him in 10 years having the same problems that we are having here today. We have an opportunity to change the dialogue, and we do not. How do we have allies that fund terrorists who come to our soil and kill 3,000 people, including my husband? How do we stay allies with them?
So just ending it by putting up a fund like Libya did, would not satisfy you.
You have to change what's going on.
Monica, thank you. I know you suffered a great deal, but I think some of your husband is pretty impressed what you've been doing since.
I hope so.